I'd just like to make a couple comments. One, thanking everybody. I guess that was my fault, but somebody. Okay. I wanted to thank everyone who came to the town hall meeting and offered their comments with regard to our local hazard mitigation plan. And I would hope that for those of you who have looked at it and have some additional comments, please send us an email. You can send it to me or to General Manager Aranda, and we will evaluate them and respond back to them. Also, we just finished a closed session and we gave direction to council. Nothing else to report. So to start out with, any public comment on items not on the agenda? Anyone from on Zoom, Linnell? No? Okay. Moving forward then, the consent calendar. Does anyone have any comments or issues with either the meeting minutes, 2023 bills, or the financial statement? Okay. David?
Mr. President, I'll make some comments on the big view of financials under my general manager's report, but I have nothing, unless there's questions, I have nothing specific on the consent calendar.
Any comments from the public? Anyone on Zoom have any? No? Okay. So with a voice vote, like, do we approve the consent calendar? Aye?
Aye.
No. Okay.
I motion that the board approves the consent calendar.
I second.
I'll have a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry about that. Any abstentions? Oh, you're going to, pardon me? Okay. Okay. All right. So there's one abstention. And any opposed? So we have a 4 in favor, 1 abstention. No. Let's start out. We have discussion of the audit, and Paul Kmark is here to discuss the audit. So, David.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that as required by law, the district is required to do an audit. Nigro has done the audit for fiscal year 23, and Paul Kmart will do a presentation. Paul?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
We're not.
Can you hear me?
We got to unmute you some way.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Linnell, can you hear me? Now you can hear me. Okay, good. All right. I heard a bing. Linnell, may I share my screen? Sharing the screen so everybody can see the financial statements. So thank you for having me this evening. I'm here to present to you the financial results of fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023 versus 2022. As we go through the presentation, if there's anybody that has questions, please stop me right there. I can answer the questions at that time. I'm going to give a nice 50,000-foot view review of the financial aspect of the organization, how the numbers came to rest at the end of June 30th, 2023 from a flow perspective, and then we can talk about other things after that. So starting off here, going through, Public safety comparison, special assessment overall, that's set in stone. That number is a hard number there. Measure G, public safety, it's still a little increase there. Recreation had a 2,095 increase there. Charges for services up about 51,000, as well as operating grants and contributions. Capital grants and grants contributions, the prior year we still had some money coming in for community center, none as of this in fiscal year 2023. Other revenue, some minor increases there overall, but overall the total program revenues overall with the decrease of the capital grants came in about 7,428 more than the prior year overall. Property tax, we had a nice 10% increase in property taxes overall during the year. Franchise fees saw a little gain there overall, and investment earnings turned to the positive. And we'll talk about that in a minute as the overall portfolio for the organization. Salaries and wages had increase there, COLA increases, inflation, other things in regards to that overall. Employee benefits, we turned to the positive from the credit. This is on a full accrual basis overall, looking at these numbers. But if we can switch, I'll switch to the cash basis here. If you can see this, please give me a thumbs up. All right, cash basis overall. When we look at your expenditures, salaries, and wages, very close there. Employee benefits, the big thing is the CalPERS pension. That's what's throwing off full accrual. But here is the cash basis. We really only spent $541,946 cash basis versus $461,965 in the prior year cash basis. But we'll get back here to full accrual. So a full accrual basis, we saw a positive there, 2.9 million versus a credit in the prior year of 3.3 million. That's because of the volatility of the CalPERS investment portfolio overall. So just understand that all has to do with CalPERS. Materials and services, we got a big jump here, 1.9 versus 1.0. When we looked at the overall expenditures, there was some more from legal, some accounting services and others, but a lot of things with regards to repairs and maintenance, things that needed to get done, some deferred maintenance, tree trimming over there at the parks, other things that were needed in there. So we can kind of say it's deferred maintenance. You have a general manager now on site taking care of these things, and there was some cost of things that need to be done. So we had a conversation with David, and things seemed to flesh out, just deferred maintenance that was needed overall for the district overall. So the big increase there overall. We capitalized what we could as overall for capitalization of new fixed assets, but a lot of things were just plain overall repairs and maintenance and stuff. So things that happened then wouldn't give more useful life to things. So depreciation expense, very comparable, and interest expense overall on the debt there. So total expenses, 6.8, of course, with the employee benefits full accrual. So we came here to, when we look on a full accrual basis, we're negative 2.6. Because of that, when we look on a cash basis, we're only on a negative 309,412 overall. So when we come back here, what do we have? Well, we have capital asset additions of 68,000, but depreciation expense was 161. So we had a change in capital expense, which is non-cash. So we're adding that back. Principal payments, that's cashed out. So principal payments, your cash and investments overall went from 2.60 from 2.66. So a decrease overall in cash, only 55,215. And how do we get back to that? Well, we have the negative here, overall change for full accrual. Use of cash, the add back of the depreciation expense, because that's non-cash. We had more depreciation than what we purchased. Debt service principal, that's a cash out. Compensated absences and change, we get that. And then OPEB credit and a pension expense. So overall, we get back right here on a cash basis from the 55,215 to a negative 53,128 on a cash basis overall, not the negative 2.644, 144. These are the changes that went into on a full accrual basis to get you back and forth between the two aspects of cash and accrual. Investment portfolio earnings. We're looking at interest rates, and interest rates have gone on. Nobody's really worried about interest for the past 15 years since the 2008 debacle. And in the market, and we've kind of had only like 0 to 1% interest rates for 15 years. But now looking at it, where you have things in investment portfolio, you can get 5% out there. it's something to look forward, looking forward, something to do in that aspect overall. When we look at your overall portfolio and what you earned here, 26,095, that's only about a 1% earnings on your portfolio. We audit to anticipations. The anticipation was at least a 2%. So a little bit low on that, how you're holding your cash at the county, how you're holding there's other ways to diversify your investments, but you have to work. So investment management is working your investments overall, working the cash, making the transfers to earn the float. Our expectation is 4% next year. So just to let you understand, there's things out there to be able to earn tax-free money on your war chest of your cash. So any questions?
Paul, I'm going to make a statement, see if I generate any questions. I had a number of calls from various directors, and this applies to the residents of Kensington. And I want to make sure that there's an understanding of why there's this dramatic number shift and what does it mean for our operations?
The number shift, well, no, remember, the large shift in numbers is full accrual. When we come back here to a cash basis, revenue still comes in as revenue does overall, no changes there. But when we looked here, salaries and wages, increases there, you can anticipate that each year, COLA, other aspects going up, inflation. Employee benefits, same thing there, rise in health and pension costs from year to year. We can see that. The biggest shift there, of course, is materials and services overall. And that kind of falls into everything else that is in there. And as I discussed, there was, some legal aspects of legal bills that needed to be paid, some accounting work that needed to be kept up on and paid up to, as well as deferred maintenance, repairs and maintenance around the district's area that needed to be taken care of. And of course, that was all expensed in there overall. Capital outlay, we capitalized a vehicle, 68,000, a new police vehicle. Principal payment, these are principal payments and interest payments on your debt. So the only thing that was really volatile overall was materials and services. And sometimes there is certain years, 1 year you could have a lot of repairs and maintenance. You can go a decade to not have a lot of repairs and maintenance. So this was a year when some of that was needed overall. Could have been done to, the reason for the rain, the weather, different things that, looked at. Some things were deferred or other things in other aspects. So when we look at that, it's a 1 year type of aspect when you look on it from a cash basis for your expenditures of what your outlays were during that period. So, David.
Sylvia, you have a question?
I do. As you may know, Paul, we've switched to being able to manage our own money by taking it out from the county. And you just mentioned some ways to earn tax-free money on that. I wonder if you could expound on that a little bit. And I think obviously this is about the audit. We can't talk about it too much, but since you are here and this is part of the discussion, I do think that, this coming fiscal year with that change, we'll be working with Five Star Bank and the GM will be, taking we'd like to see that happen. So if you could just comment a little bit on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest new product that is out there today for the special district and the city type governments, and it is backed by California Special Districts Association as well as the League of California Cities. It's the new product called California Class. Now, California Class just this week reached between all of the participants in its pool $1 billion. And it was just started 18 months ago as an alternative to LAIF and the county pools, which have been handcuffed. I mean, they're non-performing assets. They're handcuffed because, like I just discussed, for the past 15 years, you could only buy 1% paper. Okay, and buying that 1% paper, the county pools, LAIF, they would buy $10 million of 1% paper for a 10-year period. Well, you still have 7, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 years until that, that investment matures. And the pools, Leif, the county, they're riddled with these types of investments that if they were to sell today, they would take a major loss of unrealized gains because no one's going to buy 1% paper when you can get 5 on the market. So timing was everything with California Class. California Class started in July of 2022. So, like real estate, it's location. Location timing is everything. For their first purchase, their first investment was buying a treasury at 3.5%, and they just started buying more for that. So today they have $1 billion under participation with the California Class product that is out there earning 5.6%. It's free. I wish I could get that. I wish I could get on them. I think my American Express is only paying, their money market account is only paying 5% right now for a personal money, not even a business, but a personal money market account paying 5% liquidity right now. So it's an amazing product for you out there to diversify. But like I said, investment management, nobody cared the last 15 years. Nobody did. You earn 1%, whoopee, that's it, because that's all the market could bear. Now with high interest rates of over 5%, you have to work to get the flow. Moving money. What you should see in your treasury report is money moving back and forth, moving the money between your investment portfolio and your checking account, keeping the least amount you can in checking and putting it over there, moving it back. When I need to make payroll, I move it back. When I need to pay large bills, I move it back. But that's that's called investment management. You have to work to get the yield and the return on that. So there's a great product out there for you. And I know David will talk about that with his dealings with the state, and something that you should look forward to. But that's another way to boost your budget. That's your hedge against inflation, letting your war chest work for you. Just manna from heaven. It's just so.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had presentations on Class at the CSD annual conference, so looking forward to that.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Paul, for being here and discussing this. I think to sort of piggyback off of what David was starting to ask, I think it would be helpful to the community and to the board if you just touched on, and again, you did briefly mention the volatility in the pension investments, but this $7.5 million number, or 1,174.49% increase in operation expense is shocking, and obviously just needs some explanation. I understand roughly and understand this is impacting all public agencies with CalPERS, but if you could touch on that for the community, that would be great.
Well, and that goes back right, and it touches right back to what we spoke of in the investment pool. Okay, CalPERS being a large investment purchaser. Okay, what happens with that is when we look at this year right here. Okay, when we look at the year under 2022, we see this credit being afforded to the participants within the CalPERS pool. That was that 1 year where investments popped up to 2%, 2.5%, and then they dropped back down. So during that period of time, there was a huge unrealized a gain that CalPERS made because the investment portfolio gained during that period. So when the CalPERS got that gain in their portfolio, they had to distribute that gain out to everybody. Okay. So everybody that paid in now has all this unrealized gain in their portfolio, giving you a boost and a reduction of your liability because of that. So the 3.3 negative is a huge credit. When you swing back to the next year, interest rates start skyrocketing, and what's CalPERS holding? They're holding the bag at 1%. You have a huge, when you reevaluate the portfolio of CalPERS under an audit fair market value, you now have a huge loss that you had to distribute to all the participants within that investment pool. So the volatility from year to year, now we should see it. Now, if CalPERS is righting their ship and buying better investments, that volatility should shift back again next year. I know it's crazy. When they did GASB 68 to put the pensions on the books, they said this was never going to happen. It's a 5-year smoothing. We're going to get out there. The unfortunate thing is that it's happened. They didn't know what kind of monster they created to do this. So when you reevaluate it from year to year with a volatile investment portfolio, things like this happen. So it only has to do, like I said, with the full accrual basis of how we take the information for audit and from the actuaries and put it into the financial statement. This over here on page 15 is the true representation of what your true cash out is. Okay, your true cash out expenditures was only 541,946 for employee benefits on your health care, pension, OPEB benefits for retirees. All that fits into one place. So that's your cash out right there. The volatility swings when you go to full accrual, looking at your long-term basis of everything. This is current. This is just 1 year. So it's that understanding of having to look in the two different places to understand that. So, I mean, we're handcuffed in the audit world. I mean, it is what it is when we do this, and the calculation kind of is what it is when it comes from the actuary at CalPERS. We just have to put it into the financial statement. But hopefully that when you're looking at from a cash out position, which is that's all that you need to make from a cash out position. This is the statement you need to look at over here on page 15, which also aligns with your budget in the back of the financial statement.
Any other questions? Go ahead. Continue on, Paul.
I think that kind of shows where everything is settled for the end of the year. Nice to have a manager on site we can talk to. So we were able to finish everything, get our questions answered of things that were changing, giving David a lot of information from the knowledge, the tribal knowledge that we've had, as being your auditor for a few years, to be able to bring all that together, to be a really good compliment to the organization. So.
Any public questions, comments? Dr. Dell?
Got it?
Yeah.
A. Stephen Still. Relative to the entire audit, this is trivial, but I noticed that the net solid waste franchise fee revenue is a little over $83,000. You'll find this on the dashboard or on page 8. That's 25% more than the previous fiscal year. Bayview's customer base is relatively stable, so an increase in franchise fee revenue should basically correspond to the 1-year rate increase, which was about 7%. In addition, according to Edie Bailey's fiscal year financial report, the net revenue was just a little over $65,000, $18,000 less. That's an unusually large difference, some 20%. Is there a simple explanation for where you found the extra franchise fee revenue?
That is something I would have to dive into the details. So unfortunately, I do not have that at this point in time. So
I think it may be a case of the money not being deposited in a timely manner and it carrying over when we started realizing that checks weren't getting deposited like they were supposed to. So my answer would be stability and continuity, let's see where the actual franchise fees fall in their actual fiscal year. I mean, we can check, but I seem to remember talking to someone about that in 2022. There was some money that was written that didn't get deposited until 2023. I could be wrong, but I think that's what might be the case.
So I guess my concern is that what documents did NNN look at? They didn't look at the Edie Bailey fiscal year financial report, because that lists the amount as about 65,000. That's what really tripped me up.
In our statement?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I think I question that too. I'm gonna have to look into it.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. If we go and take a look at it, and we can report it in the next meeting for that matter. Any questions from Zoom, Linnell? No? Any more questions from the board? So do I hear a motion to accept the audit?
I move to accept the 2023 audit. The fiscal year 2023 audit.
Second.
Okay. Call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you, board. Linnell, could you please remove me as the presenter so I don't kill the whole Zoom when I back out?
The next item on the agenda is the automated license plate reader policy. Consideration of approving that. So, David, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll start the conversation. In my staff report, Linnell took the motion that was made last month. The chief spent a good amount of time inserting that information, and we ran it by legal counsel, and hopefully it meets what the recommendations of the board were from last month.
Chief, do you want to have anything to say, or? I want to make note that you'll notice in the document, the highlighted yellow is what were changed pursuant to board comment.
I have no comment. Good evening, everyone.
Okay. So, any board? Alex?
I just want to thank Chief Kankes and General Manager Aranda for spending time with this. I know it was a little bit time consuming, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Cass?
I just want to thank you for highlighting the appropriate parts. All good.
Anyone else? Anyone from the audience? Any public comment? Linnell, anyone on Zoom? Okay. No, no one? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the policy?
I move that we approve the automated license plate reader policy.
Second.
Any additional comment? No? Linnell, call a roll?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Moving on to the next item, a discussion and direction regarding the reorganization process and the dissolution of the reorganization committee. General Manager.
I'll start off by mentioning how pleased I think we all are, that we're continuing to move forward with this. And I feel very positive in regard to the meeting that Mary and I had with Dimitri of Ridgeline. He received the boilerplate contract information from Best and Krieger. He's returned it. It is in Best and Krieger's hand for review. Based on the board action of approving that a few months ago, I feel that once it's approved by legal, that it doesn't need to come back to the board, that it can be signed by myself. And in conjunction with that, we will start moving forward with working with Dimitri. If you look in the proposal, what you'll note is there's a lot of preliminary information that really falls on me and Mary to provide Dimitri. We're going to start doing that shortly. He's in Europe right now, so we'll start getting that form when he gets back. At some point in time, there will be the need for a joint meeting, but we'll try to keep, both Mary and I will try to coordinate that with the respective presidents and the respective directors.
And let me just mention that the fire board agreed to a 50-50 cost share on this project. So we will be splitting the cost between the two districts. So does anyone, Cass?
Yes. I just want to say a huge thank you to both boards and especially to the general managers who have worked hard together to get this going. Mary is leaving the fire board soon, so I can see that you two are trying to jumpstart this and really give it a boost. Thank you. And to Mr. Semyonov as well.
I've handcuffed Mary. She can't leave.
I know. Mary's great. And I'm proud of Kensington for investigating options for more coordinated, more streamlined, more smart government. Yes.
So we will be the contract on this, and we will work out an arrangement with the fire board for reimbursement going forward. So, and I would agree that giving David the authority to represent us on the contract negotiations and moving forward with the contract is a reasonable idea. Streamline the process. And does anyone have any problems with that?
I have a question. The cost is about $50,000, right? So my question may be for Ann Saprell potentially, because we currently have a limit for the GM's authority. So I don't know if we are able to change that for this purpose.
My understanding was the board approved it.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is what we already approved. I apologize. Yes, of course.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Anyone on Zoom have any comment? Well, good. And I also want to dissolve the committee, which is myself and Sylvia. And I want to thank Sylvia for doing her part on getting this thing through. It took a while, but it did come to fruition. So thank you again, Sylvia, for your work.
My pleasure.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which is the district office recommendations, police department, district office, or police department and district office recommendations. And this is just a joint effort with Sarah and Alex. So I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, President Spath. Linnell, am I able to present? Yeah, okay. I'll do it. Yeah.
Can everyone see? Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Director Aquino Fike. Appreciate everyone coming out and joining us for this presentation during packed agenda and after a town hall. I want to thank you for your patience with us and with the committee, the KPPCSD Police Department and District Office Permanent Location Committee. This is our final presentation tonight. I know it took us a little longer than we had anticipated, so again, I appreciate your patience. And we're eager to share our findings and our recommendation with you all, but also with the board. It's now time for the full board to really weigh on this set of issues, so let's get started. Oh, and if you all don't mind, let us run through the presentation, hold your comments to the end, and then we definitely want to hear everything. And but let's, for the sake of getting through this, let's just hold the comments to the end. Just a quick roadmap for today. What we're going to do is first review the committee's mandate and the purpose and the deliverables, and then share our final recommendation to the KPPCSD Board of Directors, and then lay out a few of our requested actions that we think should occur after giving our final recommendation. So again, you all may have seen these documents, but or some of the background documents, but I want to, for those of you who haven't, want to put this all in context. As president, the former president of this board, I created this temporary ad hoc committee in the January 2023 meeting. In the interest of transparency, we shared a written document laying out the committee's purpose and deliverables. I want to underscore that we did not pursue options outside of the borders of Kensington. The committee mandate did not include this. So what was the committee mandate? Really, the purpose as laid out in our original document was to investigate and recommend a permanent location for the police and district offices within the borders of Kensington. The committee will consider, among other things, available commercial, vacant land, and residential properties within our borders, and architectural plans submitted by Bart Jones and Jim Watt. The deliverables that were anticipated at the time were to provide updates at monthly meetings until a location was identified or the committee dissolves, and to provide a recommendation including a thorough cost-benefit analysis of the top 2 location options no later than 12 months from the committee formation date. So really for over a year now, Director Goff and I have been working diligently to analyze the information available, speak with key stakeholders, local and regional agencies, and the community to assess where we could permanently house our police department and our district offices. We believe that we were elected to bring back the police into Kensington, and also because of this mandate that we formed and articulated, we did not pursue, again, options out of Kensington. And as you'll hear later, we will be only presenting one option. I really want to underscore this, there is no good second option. There is no real second option. And so we were really, there wasn't, the whole idea of presenting 2 cost-benefit analyses is really moot. And I think that the option that we've gotten, that we're going to be recommending is, I just want to acknowledge it's not a perfect option. This isn't something that we're all running around screaming excitedly about. It was a very challenging road to get here. And we inherited a lot of things that were unfortunate, but this is where we are, and we're trying to do the best with what we have. So that's where we are. I want to also review what we actually looked at. We did, again, reconsider the PSB. Again, we considered commercial properties within Kensington, residential properties within Kensington, vacant land. But in addition, based on a lot of great ideas and feedback from the community, we looked at East Bay mud properties. We looked at the UUCB renting or leasing a parcel there within Kensington, not the El Cerrito side. We looked at county properties. We also got many requests to consider eminent domain, and we looked into that. And lastly, we looked at the parcel that the district owns south of the library on the Arlington. And I also want to recap, just for, again, memory's sake, several needs of our police department that are non-negotiable. And so when we're thinking about where we can house permanently house our police department, we have to keep in mind that some things for a modern, well-functioning, high-quality police department are just non-negotiable these days. And that includes, police, I don't need to go through all these line by line, but as you can see, these are several items. There are also nowadays, for a modern, well-functioning police department, several things that are now considered standard. And these are not kind of wish list luxury police department items. These are things that most police departments across this country have. We would like to, when we're updating our police station, we would like to include these items so that our police have a very strong standard space to work in. And I'll turn it over to Director Goff.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Aquino Fike. Thank you all for being here, listening, those who will listen later. I will begin with this recap of options on the 8th slide. And this chart, this colorful thing before you, is really an attempt by us to share in a clear and digestible format the options we spent the last year studying and how they compare to each other. So please reference the color code in the upper right-hand corner of the slide. You'll see that those items in green reference a positive indicator for the option, those in red, a negative, and those in yellow, a neutral indicator for the option. As you can see, there are 6 columns in total. The first one, possible option, you can see there, and those were all mentioned by Vice President Aquino Fike, and they encompass everything in the mandate and the committee description, as well as additional, those suggested by the community. And they were all within Kensington because, again, that's what we believe was the mandate from the community. I will make one comment about eminent domain. Again, it's the last option you see here. It is one of those listed because several community members requested that we look into that. If you'd like to understand this option more fully, please reference the brief memo provided by BBK on this legal process. I won't go into it now. It's a brief memo. It took them no time at all to do, but it is a legal process, and I didn't think anyone wanted to rely on my, law school property law class knowledge on that. So anyhow, you have it. Please look into it, but it's not something we're going to discuss further tonight. Okay, so the next column is available. And again, these are pretty self-evident, but I'll go into it. It's just, is the property currently being offered for sale or lease to the public generally or to the KPPCSD specifically? As you can see, most are not. So one that could take most off the table, but then we can look at the next column, the need to purchase or lease. This column, also pretty obvious, is it's asking, do we need to pay upfront money to be able to use the property, either by purchase or lease? And please note, this is a separate cost from the cost to build, which is addressed in the last column. Then we look at the column titled counterparty risk / litigation risk. This risk column really attempts to capture those uncertainties and potential problems that could arise during the process of securing and developing a property. Whenever another counterparty is involved, risk increases. Even if it's a fairly straightforward purchase-sale agreement, lease agreement, because you still have to negotiate against someone else, which means you're subject to their terms, their timing. You have to rely on their good faith. I think most people can understand litigation risks, but essentially it pertains to the likelihood that someone would bring a suit against the district to either prevent the transaction or seek damages for a harm they perceive we caused. The next column meets minimum requirements. Vice President Kino-Fike already explained. I'll just emphasize that these building requirements do not, and I repeat, do not contemplate or seek expansion of the Kensington Police Department, but rather these requirements speak to what we would be minimally required to sustain existing Kensington police operations with the current quality of service. The last column, major construction involved. Again, pretty clear, but essentially it's asking, do we need to build a new structure or significantly modify an existing structure, or both, in order to pursue the option? Now, let's take the big picture view. We can see there's a whole lot of red or negative indicators. And that is because we don't have a lot of great options for bringing our police back together in one whole unit operationally to Kensington, which I think most of us can readily admit. There is a reason this question has gone unanswered for so many years. If you read through this chart and you listen to all of the monthly updates we have consistently given over the last year, and specifically our 2 in-depth presentations on the public safety building and on the other real estate options, then you will not be surprised by any of this. We do not have time tonight to go and revisit those presentations and all the rationale explained, but they are available on our website, and I highly encourage you to listen to them again. We've also included additional information in your agenda packet for your reference. And if you have a specific question about anything said tonight and you'd like to raise that question tonight, please do so, or after. My email is sgoff@kppcsd.org. Alex, you can figure out as well. Okay, so now, as you can see, the option with the most green is, or the most positive indicators, is very clearly the KPPCSD property south of the library. It is available for KPPCSD use because it's ours. We do not have to purchase or lease the land because we already own it. In terms of risk, there is no counterparty because there's no counterparty risk because there is no counterparty. And while there's always a risk of litigation, pretty much anytime you step out your front door, we have been advised by counsel that the risk is low based on the legal issues raised thus far. RDC, the architecture firm the district recently engaged by the KPPCSD to recommend building sites on the South Lot, has indicated recently that a building meeting our minimum requirements can be sited there. And while the point of this presentation is not to recommend or suggest the design or type of building, that is, whether portables or new construction, either way, we know that major construction would be involved, as the site would have to be prepped and graded, utilities hooked up, parking added. And in the case of portables, for example, they would have to be reattached and possibly reconfigured. A traffic light would have to be installed no matter what, in all likelihood, and likely other things related to construction. Construction costs is clearly a negative indicator for this option and all options on the chart, because construction in the year 2024, and I say this from personal experience, I'm in the midst of a major one right now, is extremely expensive, shockingly so. And we should all expect to become more so in the future. It's just how it works. Though hopefully it doesn't escalate at so precipitously as we've been seeing. On to the next slide, assumptions. In light of these mostly positive indicators for the South Lot option relative to the other options, Director Kino-Fike and I then made several assumptions in order to form the basis for our recommendation. And they are that the police building would be efficiently designed to satisfy police and district needs only, approximately 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. that it would be directly accessible from Arlington Avenue, that it would not be visible from the recreational areas of the park, that it would not interfere with any other community activities or services in the area, and that it would be sensitive to the natural environment and surrounding neighborhood. So assuming, sorry, next slide, please. Assuming these things to be true, we believe the KPPCSD land south of the library is our best option for permanently siting the police operations in Kensington in a way that maintains our current quality of policing, does not negatively impact other community services, and does not expose the district to unreasonable risks. Now let's dig deeper by exploring the opportunities and advantages and challenges of the South Lot. Next slide, please. The opportunities and, oh, sorry. Okay, we're still in recommendation. So opportunities and advantages. So under that, we have a no cost to entry. As previously stated, we don't have to purchase the property to build on it because we own it. So 100% of our district money will go toward the cost of construction only. For all other options, there would be a cost to acquire land or a building with likely cost of demolition before we could even break ground on the new structure. This is a huge cost savings. Already addressed no counterparty risk and minimal risk of litigation. There's also been an initial determination by RDC architects that access can be achieved by the Arlington. This not only reduces negative impacts on the park and other areas, but having a visible police presence on the Arlington can be a powerful deterrent to crime. Now let's discuss this town center concept. There is a huge public benefit to centralizing community services in one area. Already, we have the library, the church, the community center, KCC activities, the elementary school, and of course, the park recreational spaces. Adding a public safety and district office would cement this area as a sort of town center, creating synergies and efficiencies that would not only improve access to all services, but enhance collaboration among them as well. Contained scope. Now that we know all that we know after many, many months and even years of exploration, it is clear to us that we do not need or want a gigantic new building. I know that dual agency building designed some years ago gave a lot of people concern, myself included. It was much too big and it did not minimize negative impacts to the park. This recommendation is not that. Indeed, this recommendation is predicated on assumptions that it will be the opposite of that. The positive initial geotech report. This is important to note. We've shared it publicly, but in a nutshell, we've been assured by engineers that the site is safe and buildable, low seismic risk and mudslide risk, among other things. And this cannot be easily said about many lots in Kensington. And because we own it, we've been able to do this initial investigation, and there will be more coming if the board decides to continue down this path. And finally, but not least of all, we have received some initial positive feedback from several key stakeholders, among them our Chief of Police, Mike Ginkes, all of our staff, Supervisor Joya, and many members of the community. This is not to say we don't have challenges. No one is saying that. There are things to point out. Drainage, for example. Drainage is an issue with all construction and renovation projects. You must address it. The county, in one of our meetings we had in our scope of our committee work, did advise that this may be complicated and costly depending on the building design, project scope, and downstream infrastructure. So it's an unknown. That's something that we would learn in the process. A traffic light, I think I've mentioned this, but the county says this does appear likely given the location, and that this is not a small cost. It could be around $500,000. That estimate is provided by the county. And then of course, just the cost of new construction, which we've already acknowledged is crazy high, period, full stop. It is. And given this is not to alarm or pressure anyone, but we do know that costs will go up. Hopefully not as they have been, but they will. And it would be naive to assume they won't. So it doesn't behoove us to delay and stall. Slide 11, or what now we go to the ballpark costs. I'm sorry, I hope you're still with me. This feels long. Before I launch into the numbers, let me give some context and disclaimers around these figures. First, they are called ballpark costs for a reason. These numbers are rough. We simply cannot have accurate numbers. Nobody could have accurate numbers because you can only do that with a detailed design, and I mean detailed. Again, anecdotally, in our personal project, contractors didn't even want to talk to us until we had about 50 pages worth of plans to show them. So we need detail. We don't have it. We couldn't have it at this point. Second, we got these rough estimates and formula by consulting two architects, Candace Wong, the PSB expert referenced in our public safety building presentation, and Mallory at RDC, who is the architect engaged in providing our site recommendation. Both are experts in public safety, building design, Bay Area pricing, and Mallory in particular is quite familiar with the South Lot, given his prior work on the dual agency building with the fire board and recent meeting with our committee. A third disclaimer. These numbers relate to new construction only because we received negative initial feedback from RDC about siting the portables there. Obviously, that could change because we are still awaiting their site recommendations. And in that, they will include discussion of the feasibility and desirability of siting portables on the South Lot. But we wanted to take a conservative approach to these numbers and give the community a realistic picture of what the costs would I don't even know likely, they're so such an estimate, but could be for housing the police on the South Lot. It's the cost to construct a new building. Brief review of construction terminology. The hard costs are that per square foot number you see. And all those costs hard costs are all those costs directly related to building the building, including materials, labor, site preparation, grading, utilities, landscape, driveways, retaining walls, etc. Design contingencies are those unforeseen costs that arise during construction. Soft costs are those costs not directly related to the construction of the building, things like architectural and engineering, permitting, project management, legal fees, financing costs. And then there's our traffic light and the cost to purchase the land to build on. Into the numbers. We have the ballpark cost of 2,000 square feet, which would be that size building that meets only our bare minimum, non-negotiable requirements. And that cost could range from 3.8 million to 5.5 million. On the next slide, you have the more realistically sized 3,000 square foot building. And I say realistic because the existing portables, I don't know, I know a lot of you have been in them. Those are just under 2,900 square feet. So 3,000 square feet is a bit more realistic. And those costs could range from 5.5 million to about 8 million today. And we provide a range because not only have prices been rising, but we can assume that given the slope of the South Lot, that our construction costs would likely be on the higher end of those ranges. That said, the South Lot is quite large, and there are sites within it that are less steep and easier to build on. And as we know, Bay Area builders routinely construct buildings on slope sites, many much steeper than the South Lot. And with that, I'll turn it back to Vice President Aquino-Fike.
Thank you. As you can see, we've revisited old ideas, we've looked into new ideas, and I believe it's time for this board to move on from what ifs and for the community to move on from what ifs. And we need to focus our limited resources on the best available option right now, given the facts and challenges before us. We believe that is the south side of the library. Again, there's many challenges with this option. There's still a lot of information gathering that we need to dig into, but we think it's time to turn over this this process and this decision to the full board, and allow our general manager to really get into more of these details with the appropriate experts. Again, I think it's just very clear that the advantages and opportunities of this site far exceed the challenges. And there is no other option for moving our police back to Kensington that satisfies our minimum building requirements and does not compromise the quality of our police services, expose the district to other risks. I really want to remind folks that we have gotten to a point with this police department, thanks to Chief Gankas and other prior chiefs, where we have an extremely high quality of service. No more scandals. If things are really moving in the right direction, we have improved morale with our staff. But we are facing a lot of challenges with recruitment and retention, and having a really strong welcoming working space for our police department is really part of that picture of maintaining an independent police force in Kensington. And it gives me no great pleasure to say that there are no inexpensive options. But we are, of course, going to continue to look at grants and other funding measures. And again, we're only at the start of analyzing the feasibility. We understand that a full feasibility study is required because many of you have very valid questions. But we've made a really good faith effort. I'm proud of the work that we've done to analyze everything. And we know that there's a lot more work to do. But again, we think that the work of this committee has been concluded. We fulfilled our mandate, and it's now time for the full board to consider our findings and our recommendation and weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
One more thing. These are the two we've laid out here, generally what we think, what we recommend that the board does following our recommendation. One would be a motion to direct our interim GM to focus an exploration of the new permanent location for the KPD and district offices on the KPPCSD property south of the Kensington Public Library on the Arlington Avenue. And we are recommending, or we are asking President Spath to formally dissolve this ad hoc temporary committee effective today.
Thank you very much to both of you. You've done an exemplary job and a very comprehensive job in laying everything out, and excellent research. Thank you again. Cass, I'll start with you. You have a comment or question?
So I also want to thank you both for your hard work. This is, of course, a really hot button issue, and you have done a huge amount of research, and we really appreciate that. One thing I would like to ask for a cost comparison to be done on is relocating the portables, the modular buildings, which we currently have the police located in. When we contracted to use those, we said that this might be a bridge, towards a building in the future. I personally would love to see a beautiful building built on this site, but I'm just concerned that perhaps as an initial step, we create a site, a retaining wall, parking, but perhaps put the modulars there until we can fundraise or, secure some grants, but get them in town and get them centrally located. It's a wonderful central location. So I'd like a workup to be done. I'd like that to be part of the recommendation, that is one of the considerations. I want to reiterate my concern and the concern of many of other citizens that we don't end up with police cars driving through the current roads of the park, so that, you're talking about a community center, a city center and town center, trying to get this all hooked up together, but You know, once again, I want to strongly state, I want to make sure there are no roads that connect from this new police building into the park, just to avoid that concern that many people have stated of having police cars driving through where there are so many children and families. And I believe that's all my comments. Thanks.
I'll let Sylvia go and then Sylvia, you're next.
We've said it before. I'll say it again. Thank you. It's a great, great presentation. And I have just a couple of comments. I would say that I think that if I was doing that chart, I actually might put a litigation risk at maybe, just because there are homeowners that live next door and across the street. And given my experience, I think it's a maybe. Just, you know, but not based on some of the issues that we have discussed, specific issues, but doesn't change the fact that it's still the most green of all sites. I also, just going forward, would like to see, this is really direction, because I expect we will, you know, I'm supportive of the motions that are before us. I will obviously vote that way, but I think as we give direction to staff, I think it's important that we have as specific and detailed a list for the administrative side of the KPPCSD. When the portables were designed, the fact of the matter was the administrative needs were not as much well paid attention to. And I think that's an important point to make. I also think that, and I know this will be part of the process going forward as we look at various options, everything from the portables to stick built. I think there's also modular, which we have discussed in the past, and I know that will be part of the planning. I'm looking, or, you know, possibilities. I'm looking forward to that. So yes, thank you again. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Director Duggan and Director Hasai, for those comments. Really, really appreciate the feedback. In response, I just have a quick response to Director Duggan. I think it's premature to do a cost analysis. It's not even appropriate yet to do a comparison of portables with a real building. What we're recommending and what's before the board tonight is just the site recommendation. We're only talking about, and we're only asking you to vote on what direction we give our GM in terms of where to focus all of our energies and resources on the site. The question of how we build, what structure we use to build, that's next, or later on once we have a design. But right now, all we're talking about is where are we going to put this, whatever it is.
Any other board comments, questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see it.
Yeah.
Going down.
Yeah.
But
I will just quickly respond to Director Hasai's comment about the litigation risk, and agree there's always some, but I did say that in the presentation. There is always some. It's just relative to the others, it's low. And given that we have some initial legal reference point for that as well, that's why it was green.
I would also note, I think it's on here that we do have the legal opinion with regard to the site itself. There have been some public comments about the bond measure that was passed early on in the bond language, which would have precluded the use of this land for anything but park activities. And we've actually have two legal opinions, one from the previous council, Ann Danforth, and our present council, with regard to that, indicating that there wasn't anything that would preclude us from building on the site. So, and it's in the packet if you want to read it. Having said that, comments? Anyone in the audience have a comment? Please.
Hi, I'm Deborah Lane. I'm an architect, and I do this back of the envelope feasibility all the time. And the thing that I'm not seeing in this is the anticipated increase in taxes that this will end up costing people. And I just don't think they're going to approve an increase in taxes for this. I also think your numbers are low. I mean, $6 million to build into a hillside I don't think is going to do it. Does this include the development of the site too?
Well, if you looked at the upper range for the building was 8 million,
Right,
but
8 million.
yeah,
Okay.
and that was at an 1,800 per square foot pricing with those contingencies. So that was, it would have included site work, and that was the higher, as between the two architects, that was the higher,
Okay, so
highest.
let's just do some back of the envelope. You take 8 million, right? In 2 or 3 years, that 8 million easily becomes 10 million. Let's say you have, the police district has 2 million right now, but it's not reserved for building. But let's say in 3 years, you can raise 2 million somehow. But remember, for federal grants, you have to have it, like you said, a complete set of drawings ready to go. And the preparation of all of that is at least $500,000. It's, several hundred thousand for your, you get it. You're shaking your head, of course. So, my concern is that you're going to spend, so let's go back to the 10 million and say, conservatively, your loan will be 8 million, right? So you have 8 million, and loans are anywhere, the loan costs are anywhere 50% to 100% of the loan. But where are you going to, you're going to have to raise, there's going to be a huge taxes. And all these people that say they want this or that we have to do it, you've never asked them the right question. Are you going to be willing to pay $500 more on your tax bill every year? This is a fiscally conservative community. When I first came, I was excited about a swimming pool and people didn't want, this was 30 years ago. They didn't want to pay $100 more for a swimming pool. There are all sorts of other issues regarding that. People don't want their taxes raised. And I think that was a really poor decision, or not, I don't want to say poor because I can see how hard you're working, but I'm just saying this was left out of the discussion. And the people that you're talking about, the key stakeholders, are not the people that are going to pay the taxes for the individuals. They're the police chief, they're the police staff, police people, whatever. They're not going to pay this. So, I think if you turned the thing upside down and you said to community members, are you willing to pay $500 to $1,000 more on your tax bill so that we can give the police the place they want? It's 4 people on working at how many people are working at a time? Police officers.
Could I interrupt you and make mention of something? We're really getting way ahead of what the presentation was about.
Right, but okay.
Let me finish my thought here. Everything you're bringing up has a very legitimate tone to it, but we're not there yet. The committee was responsible for picking a site based on something in Kensington, and you just saw the presentation that we ran out of other ideas. Now, with that said, there's a real good possibility that everything you're saying is going to be stated by everyone in this community or the majority of people in this community, and we're going to say, possibly, we stay in El Cerrito.
No.
There's all sorts of options in regard to that.
Right, including we fit back, as it's always been, back into.
That's
why
you can't fit something into that building, and that is a done deal. That's done.
Well, it's been there for the 30 years I've been there. It's been there forever, and to me, it seems like the people pushing this are the police and the fire chiefs, but they work at our bequest. They don't. We have, but anyway.
Well,
I just have been listening. I don't want you. The reason I'm saying is you can go through with your whole analysis, which it seems like you're going to, but you're going to have, you know, $500,000 of the community money into this by the time you figure out, oh my gosh. And maybe I'm wrong. I hope for you I'm wrong. But I'm just warning you that this is a really distinct possibility. And that's if anybody has a question, that's all I'm saying.
Sarah, I'll let you go.
Thank you for your comments and your concern. And, you know, certainly I don't think we've tried to sugarcoat the expense of this option. And to David's point, the purpose of tonight is for us to make our recommendation. It's a recommendation. It's our opinion of where we should be focusing our energy for sites in Kensington. That was the mandate. That's what we've come back with. The full board is going to decide. We have spent 13 months of our lives digging deeply into this question, revisiting in great detail the PSB. We went through that, and all that information is there, and all the reasons. Yeah, and listen, and we've done that. And tonight we are looking to move the district forward, and this is really a next step in the process. This is nothing final. Obviously, if there were to be a cost to the citizens, we'd have to go to the citizens. No one's looking to hide the ball and be unreasonable, but I don't think that at this stage we can start interjecting into the conversation a $500 per year tax. That's just not accurate. We simply don't know the numbers. We don't know what's going to happen. We're not there, and that's the point. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I guess I just wish that there will be a tax increase.
Well, let me just say.
And I wish that had been part of the conversation, because I just feel like the tail is wagging the dog. And maybe you know, do what you want to do, but.
Well, let me just say that I think you're way ahead of yourself on this, respectfully, because all we're doing, at least at the beginning, is spending a small amount of money to do a couple of things. And that is surveying the area and doing a seismic analysis. Then it is sort of crunch time, and your point is well taken. We will have to decide whether it makes sense by coming up with a design. And I think, as has been stated before by the general manager, we need to look at grant opportunities, and there may be even grant opportunities to do a design, because there are FEMA, as an example, will give money to do planning. And so we could defray a lot of those costs going forward.
Right. I'm just saying that.
So,
you know,
so anyways,
every job, before I spend a year and a half on it, I look at these factors. That's why you're right. I'm ahead of myself, but you look at all these factors, and the main one that hasn't been looked at is cost to the community. And that's critical. And because it hasn't been looked at, I think it should have been looked at.
I disagree with you that it has been.
Well,
and it will be.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
our legal counsel has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Director Spath, I would strongly recommend that you keep this to public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to stand up and say what they want to say for up to 3 minutes. It's not appropriate to have a back and forth discussion. And so.
Okay. Yeah,
you know,
I will follow your advice.
Thank you for your comment. And next person. That's the way this goes.
Sylvia, do you want to have a comment? Okay.
Hi, I have told Alex and Sarah this privately, and I just wanted to say it publicly as well, that I'm super appreciative of the work that you did. And it wasn't too long, your presentation. It was absolutely what was needed. And it feels very satisfying to me once I really considered the scope of the project, which was limited to looking at police in Kensington, bringing the police back to Kensington. I absolutely feel like you covered it extremely well, and I'm really grateful for that work. I do have one, I guess I can't ask a question for the lawyer. I don't mean this to sound disrespectful, but I don't quite see how John Joya is a stakeholder in this. So no disrespect to the supervisor. That just doesn't add up for me. I absolutely accept that the police department and staff are stakeholders. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. General Manager?
So the committee has a recommendation, but if you notice on the agenda, I listed the recommendation a little more specific, but I do want to bring the board up to date. At the time of the agenda going out, I was still waiting for quotes from surveyors. I contacted a surveyor that had done some work in the area back in 2012, hopeful that he might have had the survey documents we needed. He contacted me yesterday and said that he does not. With that said, we have two quotes, 10,510, 10,620, to do a topo of the property. There's an additional cost if we want to stake it out. And I'll leave it at that if the board is so moved to direct me to do that.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Well, we can make a motion and then discuss it.
No, I just have a question on his.
Oh, okay.
So General Manager Aranda, is the figure in the agenda, the 30,000, that's correct? Or are you saying
the agenda for 30,000 was a number I had to pull out of the air because I didn't have a number.
It's a not.
So the true number is, my recommendation would be to give me the authority up to 15,000 is what my recommendation would
be. Sorry, thank you.
So you would recommend a reduction not to exceed 15,000. You would make a recommendation that we move to give you the authority of 15,000, not to exceed 15,000 for the survey.
Correct.
So, given that, I have a motion to that.
Will I make it? I move that we explore the KPPCSD property south of the Kensington Public Library on the Arlington Avenue as the permanent location for the Kensington Police Department and KPPCSD office, with the first step being authorizing the interim general manager, David Aranda, to enter into an agreement with the firm to survey the parcel with a cost not to exceed $15,000.
I second the motion.
Any comments with regard to the motion? From the audience? No? Have a roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. And secondly, I will dissolve the committee, and again, thank you both for the great work that you've done on this. The next on the agenda, we will be discussing the police lieutenant's contract.
I'll start. The chief and I have had numerous discussions about this position. As noted in my ASI, there was a resolution that was approved in 2021. The discussion that the chief and I have had, and we brought it briefly to the board, is wanting to place this lieutenant position in a managerial role. And that would mean certain aspects of that position not applying at all to the Police Officers Association. We tabled this the last few months because we wanted to do it right. The chief has put a lot of time in exploring contracts from numerous agencies for those upper management positions. He presented a draft that then went to Best and Krieger. There's an individual at Best and Krieger, her name is Laura Fowler, that specializes in employment law, and job descriptions and employment contracts. And so what you have before you is the end result of a lot of work in what we're presenting for both a job description for the lieutenant's position, a salary schedule for the lieutenant's position, and the actual employee contract or agreement.
Chief?
Good evening, members of the board, members of the public, General Manager Aranda. This has been a long time coming. This started back in July of 2021 when the board approved granting a lieutenant's position. When I arrived at the district in early 2021, there were many positions within the police department that were either underutilized or unnecessary. We did away with, I think, 3 positions, 3 titles: a master sergeant, a captain, and like a corporal. After an assessment, I determined that Kensington needs a middle manager. There was no succession plan for a future chief, and that was evident by the interim chiefs that were coming and going. There wasn't somebody to fill that vacancy, which is an expensive endeavor to go out and look for one. It's laborious. I think the product that you have before you is a foundation that I've written through 2028. And you won't have to reinvent the wheel with this. It's meant to have somebody in a position to take over the police department when necessary. You also have a stand-in role as an acting chief when the chief is not there to do so. So it's something that Kensington's police department really needs. A lot of the language is similar, if not identical, to what's in the Police Officers Association MOU. The salary schedule, I think, is reasonable, considering all the other agencies in Contra Costa County. And also taking into consideration there are just some agencies that are way out of scope with large budgets. So Kensington's budget was taken into account when the salary schedule was put together. It's a 5-step salary schedule, same as in the police officers MOU. So I really think this is a good product for Kensington for the long term, not just the short term.
Any questions, comments from the board?
I would like to add one more thing. At the moment, I don't have anybody to take this role. So it's not as if there'll be a lieutenant anointed tomorrow. We're in the middle of a staffing situation. So it's good to have this available when it's ready.
I appreciate the work you've done on this, Chief, and paring it down, and I think it's quite good. Sylvia?
I also just want to express my thanks, and, sorry it took this long. There was some, we always have challenges, but this is, I think, a continued effort to continue to strengthen our police department.
I think it makes it more modern. It makes it more modern relative to what we had before, because we had a whole interesting structure, I would say.
It does. It's also efficient, and it allows you to go outside of the ranks because you now have a job description, you know what's expected. So the blueprint is there for you to select future middle managers. It is a confidential position outside of the union for purposes of bargaining and things like that. So it's really what Kensington needs.
Any comments anymore from the board? Any comments from the public? Anyone on Zoom? No. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion that the board approve the creation of the lieutenant's position, the terms of employment, and the salary schedule provided, as well as the job description.
A second from anyone?
Seconded.
Okay. Linnell, will you call the roll?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Chief, and I think you're up again. You have the your report. You can't leave.
This one will be short. Good evening again. You have the monthly report in front of you. Overall, it was quiet. The only updates I have for you is I did extend a job offer to an employee today who's a lateral police officer. Very optimistic about this employee. My intentions are to have him on board sometime at the beginning of March.
Yes.
So how many officers would that bring us up to?
7.
Once again? Okay. And I wanted to say, great job doing a quarter more work with less officers this month.
Yeah, we're doing our best. We're getting a lot of help from our sister city, El Cerrito, Albany. Those chiefs and their staff are doing a great job backing us up out there. So, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the officers who are working day and night to fill the gaps where they can. So they're doing, I couldn't be more proud of them, the work they're doing right now.
Yeah, I would hope that you would convey from the board to all your officers how grateful we are for their work. It's difficult to be working overtime so heavily.
Yeah, I absolutely will extend that to them. So,
I just want to say this is a perennial problem at Kensington. Decades, if you look at old outlooks, you'll see this is a constant problem. So everything that we're doing to strengthen the department, everything related to the building, other things we've done, you know, and this is more acute because there's now a national shortage of actual officers. Before we had other issues, but I think now we really face also a national crisis.
True. We're very, very selective of who we choose.
Let me ask you a question. What is the biggest challenge that we're facing, do you think? Is it salary?
No, it's not salary. It's not hiring bonus. It is, I would say, a combination of a few things. Certainly legislation that comes down from Sacramento is not a good thing at all. But I would say a more prominent reason for the difficulty is the particular incoming workforce is not interested. So it's a tough situation. So
do most officers out there now look for more excitement, should we say? Are we too quiet a community?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But I would say that when I say selective, I want to be very clear about this. I'm not looking for somebody who's interested in jumping out of a helicopter with a rifle, because I'm not going to be able to provide that for them in Kensington. And it's going to be a bad fit. So I'm looking for the right people, not the best people, but the right people that fit here in Kensington. And we've had to pass on quite a few people. I think we're, I don't know, selecting 5% of who comes through the door. But it has to be that way. It has to be, because we're never going to go back to some of the challenges that Kensington faced. There's too much work being put into buildings and too much public trust to be lost. So we're very selective about what we're doing.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's why.
I wanted to ask, what are the legislative challenges from Sacramento?
Well, there's a lot. There's always a barrel of ideas that come out, that are churned out about not arresting, not enforcing crime, not enforcing the law. It is a risky prospect today. And I think the wrong people exploit the otherwise good intentions of some of the legislation to provoke officers and to do things that would otherwise put them in jeopardy. So there have been a tremendous amount of things come out Proposition 47 was another one. It's frustrating for an officer to take somebody into custody that just committed a crime and be forced to let the person go with a citation on the sidewalk, and then to arrest the person again the following day, and the following day, and the following day. It becomes defeating. And it's that type of stuff that is frustrating for them. They want to do good, you know. Recidivism and repeat offenders is a disheartening way to go about doing your job. So they want to see effective good come from the work that they're doing, and it's tough. So.
Thank you very much. The last item on the agenda, General Manager report.
Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions of the different goings on that I was involved in over the past month. I want to spend a little bit of time focusing on two things. One is I wrote a 6-month brief overview for our fiscal year. I kind of want to tie that into what you heard on our audit. I think it's important to understand that not only was Paul's presentation helping us to appreciate basically things we don't have control over, you know, what CalPERS ratios are, our obligation bonds and such. But there is two areas that stood out to me that I'm hoping that when this fiscal year 24 ends, you'll see a dramatic improvement or some improvement. And that's in regard to the cost of services. We need to reduce some of those things, and hopefully you'll see those be reduced as we're moving through this year, and hopefully we'll see a little bit better bottom line in our fiscal year when we come to that end in June. With that said, also in regard to what Paul Kmart brought out, we now have $1.5 million that is sitting in class earning that 5%. So that's a good thing. We moved some money from LAIF into 5-star that was also giving us a little bit better of a percentage of interest in investment. But I will tell you that that money is going to disappear over the next few months and just paying our bills, which leads me to the county. Long discussion. The county told me that they had swept the accounts and they were done and they sent us this money. Two comments I want to make on that. One is I'm still not convinced that the county is doing what they're saying. And what I mean by that is it still appears that the county is giving us our property tax money before they've actually collected all the property tax money. My familiarity with receiving receipts on property tax money is based on actual receipts. And then they true up at the end of the year what they call a teeter plan, which gives us what unpaid property tax bills are, and then the county collects it later. It appears that the county just gave us a bunch of money and they're going to true up, which, to be quite frank with you, scares me a little bit. I don't think there's going to be a dramatic shift in what they've given us, but I still don't have the confidence in the pattern that they said they were going to do of issuing us revenue checks on a quarterly basis. So that's going to take some time to see. The second point about that comment is they contacted me and they said, oh, by the way, we found $80-some odd thousand in an account regarding the park bond. Then they called me a couple of days later and said, well, you're going to sign that over to us because we're going to take about 75,000 because you have a debit in another account to do with the park bond. I mean, I can see it on paper. I've checked with the CPA at Oddie Bailey. So they're not doing something illegal. They're not doing something wrong. but it sure makes it difficult for us to understand our finances when there's not a consistent way of doing business with the county. I'm hoping that eventually goes away as we end this fiscal year and start next fiscal year. A couple of other things. The district, when it took out the obligation bond, should have been filing with a state agency each year, and they were not. Wasn't happening. Fortunately, Dimitri of Ridgeline notified me of that. I wasn't aware that that wasn't happening. And so we're caught up now on those 3 years being done, and we'll just stay in getting them filed every year. I think, unless there's some questions about the budget and about our 6 months and where we're at, I've tried to outline that. On the expense side of things, I can tell there's some things that aren't coded right. So Karn and I and the chief will probably spend some time within the next month to correct some of that coding.
Yep. Sylvia.
A couple of questions. One, will we have an opportunity to do a budget revision? Do you anticipate a budget revision that will bring the budget back, look at it, and potentially, revise it? Or do you see a need for that?
I shouldn't say my experience has been to bring to the attention of the board, not necessarily having to adjust the budget, but just making notations of why the budget and actual may not align.
Okay.
And I'll continue to do that. In fact, there's a couple of numbers that are way under budget, and there's a couple of numbers that are over budget. And once we get the coding straight, I'll probably come back to the board and say this is why and what it is. It is important. I'm going to make a general statement, but there are a couple of line items where grant money is going to come back to us to pick up what we've already expended. One being the car, and another being some equipment.
Okay, thanks. Regarding the car, or the DUI car, I just wanted, the chief is gone, but maybe whether that can be used for anything else, or it is strictly must be used only for DUI. Same with the traffic enforcement car. Are those very restricted in their use?
No, they're not going to be strict on it.
Okay. And then another question I had, two things. Well, one, at the back, I think there may be a typo. The second to last paragraph, you said it's been a learning experience for you regarding parking expenses. I think you meant park, correct?
I did.
All right, just checking. And lastly, I would like to hear more about pickleball, just what the discussions have been. And I'm assuming that obviously any changes would come to the board, but I'd like to know what that conversation's been like so far.
We met with about 35 individuals, very excited. The majority of them lived in Kensington. The majority of them play pickleball, but have to go to outside cities and communities to play. The discussions centered around putting a temporary court, which would involve buying a net that could be set up when needed on the back side of the tennis courts. If you look at the tennis courts and you see the wall, not the fence, but the wall on the backside where it's basically a handball court. And talking to Jenny, the kids use it for that purpose. But she also said that they would be excited to have pickleball available as well. So the expense would be minimal to get this started. And I don't have it yet because I'm still working with people on trying to get that.
I think one issue to be thinking about up front is the noise. And you don't have a lot of houses right around there, and it would be timing, but that's been a big controversy in many, many communities.
You're right. And that was brought up when I met with these people. They had a reading meter and they hit the pickleball back and forth and they walked to where the homes were and they were way below what they actually thought they were going to be. And they said it shouldn't be a problem.
I think timing of pickleball use would be also important given the use of the park by KCC and all that, but that's great. I'm glad to hear it because I think it's a good idea.
Cass?
Yeah, piggybacking on that, just, yeah, don't make it early morning and evening. And my question was about these annual debt transparency reports. Are those the thing that Dmitry Semyonov caught, or what are they?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, those are the filings.
Those are the
Question?
filings of the things that Dmitry alerted you to. That's
Yes.
what those are. Okay.
Those have been submitted to the CDAIC.
Treasury, state treasury.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I just want to confirm and point out, did we secure this $180,000 grant? Are we going to get that park grant?
We are.
Yay!
Yeah.
You guys have to really extend your appreciation to David. He worked really, really hard on this for pretty much ever since you got here. I remember you identified that immediately, that $180,000 that we were owed essentially as grant money for work on the community center, I understand. So that took a lot of perseverance on his part. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yep. We turned in the paperwork and got confirmation that they are now processing the check. Hopefully we'll see the check in April.
Let me just clarify. That is a different grant than the one we had for the community center, which was East Bay Regional Park District.
Actually, I think it's the remainder of that WW grant. If I remember, or it's a new, no, this is the other one we did with the state. This is a separate grant, actually. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. It's a separate grant.
It's called a per capita grant. And what the state did a number of years ago is they set aside money based on population and some other factors. It sits in a pot for all these different entities that have parks, but you've got to prove that it's something that well, in this case, we already spent the money. Most processes would have been to apply as you were going to do the project.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Yeah, one.
I have a question related to that, David. I guess we're not going to pay down our loan with that because it makes more sense to keep the loan at a lower rate and keep the money in our operations and stuff. Yeah.
That would be my recommendation. Yes.
Cass?
I just want to do a director's report real quick before we close. Don't we have director comments?
Yes, we do.
Are we at that point? Director comments.
Yes.
Okay. Tiny comment. I am beginning my project, which is centered around helping seniors and those with disabilities, mental illness, and any other issues in Kensington. I'm looking for input regarding services needed and concerns that you might have, and I'm seeking volunteers to help me research these areas in Kensington. I'll buy lunch. Dudes, help me out here. Thank you.
Are you looking for volunteers from the board or volunteers from the public?
Oh,
or both?
Both.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, good. I guess we can vote to close the meeting. I guess we don't have to. All right. I won't be so formal. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when is the next meeting? On the 14th, 11th?
March 14th.
I think it's the 14th. Well, now, all right. So the next meeting of the board will be March 14th. And with that, meeting is closed and wish all of you a pleasant evening.